İyi akşamlar. Sem'i bekliyoruz. O da birazdan herhalde girmek üzere diye düşünüyorum. Sem'i beklerken Ömer, Uğur Ata, şu Nigel Hayes'te biraz yardımcı olursun bize artık sohbette.
Elimizden geldiği kadar koç.
Tamam,
Önden
süper.
olmazsa konuşalım. Önden istediğiniz bir şey varsa önden.
Tamam, önden konuşalım. Ben ona bir iki konu verdim. Ondan sonra seninle de konuşalım. Beraber devam ederiz. Fatih, FIBA'dan hiç görüntü var mı? Videolarda.
Nasıl abi?
Ha, Sam geldi galiba. Hi Sam. Hi, how are you? Nasılsın?
İyiyim, sen nasılsın?
Süper. Ben kimim biliyorsun değil mi? Sedat'ın abisiyim ben. The assistant coach. Sedat's older brother.
Yes, I know.
Okay.
How are you?
So take care. Watch out.
Okay.
We are okay. How is yourself? How is your family?
Good, my family is good. We are home, spending time trying to pass this situation. We are staying positive, trying to stay happy and see what happens. Hopefully all this can end soon. So we're sitting here waiting, being patient.
Okay. So if you like, we can start and just we talked earlier about your subject.
Yes.
So you can start. You can talk about it. Then we may have some question. We will talk like question and answer situation. Okay.
Okay. Is there anything in particular you want to touch base on?
Yeah. Let's start with the young guys.
Mm-hmm.
You are very experienced, especially you play a lot of year in Turkey,
Mm-hmm.
even on TBL on the second division,
Mm-hmm.
and most of the time you play with Orhun Ene. So
Right.
when you look around yourself, what will be the advice that you can give us for young kids to grow up and develop themselves for the higher level leagues like Eurocup and EuroLeague?
I think of from my experience in Turkey, from what I've seen, I think something that would really help the young players is getting them to fall in love with the game again. It's you see from my experience, a lot of the young Turkish players that I met, it's not, we know it's not easy being a young player in any country. Young players have a lot of expectations, they have a lot of responsibilities, and sometimes it can be really challenging for them. So I think if we can somehow find a way to get the young guys to fall in love with what it takes to be a good player, to fall in love with the hard work, to fall in love with paying the price and getting the benefits later, I think that could help a lot for the young Turkish players. I think they have the ambition, they have the motivation, but sometimes it's not always easy. They practice with their young teams, and they have to practice with the A teams, and then they're traveling from one place to another. So sometimes it's hard. Plus, a lot of them are also in school, so sometimes it can be very difficult for them to enjoy it. It becomes a job for many of them at a very young age, and I think trying to find a way to balance everything and giving them time to not just work in basketball, but to enjoy playing basketball, I think that'll make a big difference for them as far as falling in love with it. Because once you fall in love with it, then you work harder, you work smarter, you're more dedicated, and in the end, that helps you in the future become a better player. so that you may be able to play in the Euro League and the Euro Cup on some of the top teams, and not just play but have an impact.
Okay. You work a lot of young guys, even American players. They come to your team and develop themselves, and move to other teams.
Right.
And you have a lot of Turkish kids, I mean, young generation with you. So when you play with them, what is your observation other than the fall in love, the ambition? Technically, what did you see, and what the technical advice for them? Yeah.
I see. Okay, from my personal experience, I see that a lot of the difference between, let's say, me as a young player growing up playing basketball versus the Turkish young player. I think the difference between when I was growing up playing basketball versus when a Turkish young prospect would grow up playing basketball is I had a lot more freedom in my game. Like I said before, these kids, we take them when they're 13, 14 years old, and we put them in a system. You know, we teach them pick and rolls, and we teach them how to read the different defenses and offenses, and all of that stuff is great, and it's very important for players in the future. But I think there's also an importance for them to just kind of play the game just for fun, and to kind of learn what they're good at and what they're not good at. You know, a lot of the stuff that I learned as a player, I learned just by playing with my friends, playing in the streets, playing in different leagues, without so much technique behind it. You know, I think the more you play and the more freedom you give a player, the more the player understands what they're good at and what they're not good at. But it's sometimes difficult for a player to see that when from a very young age, you know, we're teaching them, okay, on the pick and roll, do this. You know, coaches, we try to help the younger players, which is good, but sometimes we over help them. We try to control too much of their game instead of giving them some freedom for them to see what they're good at and what they're not good at. And I think every player, if they're honest players, every player is able to see at a very young age some of the things that they're good at and some of the things that they're not good at. And I think the challenge, like I said before, is these young guys, they play for their junior teams, then they play for the A teams, and then they go to school. They don't have too much time to just really play the game and improve in certain areas that they have potential in, and sharpen up some of the areas that they need to get stronger. And I think that goes on throughout the year. You know, they do it throughout the season, and then in the summers, that's supposed to be their time to improve. But, you know, we have national teams, we have all these different basketball situations that take up their time. So I think a big help for the young Turkish players is just giving them the freedom to just explore themselves in their game. You know, I grew up having, in the summer times, I wasn't part of my national team. So in the summers, I would play in all the different local leagues, and I would just compete against the better players in my city, the better players in my state. And I learned a lot about myself in those periods of my life. And I was able to understand some of the things that I'm good at and some of the things that I'm not so good at. And I tried to focus and improve on the things that I was good at so that I can become the best player I can. And I think for the young Turkish players, I think it's giving them that freedom to explore themselves and to find out who they are without, you know, always a coach telling them, you know, do this, do that. Because it's hard for a young player. Every young player believes they're Stephen Curry or LeBron James. You know, they all believe they're going to go to the NBA. So sometimes giving them that chance to see it and to see whether, you know, they really can be the next Stephen Curry or not. And I think it'll be a good wake-up call for them.
Sam, what age you talk about actually when you say and you gave the example from yourself as you have freedom and pick up games on the courts, outside of the court?
Yeah, I played. Okay, like when I played for my high school, we had some structure in my high school, but everything I did in the summers, that was self-improvement. Like up until I was 18, until you go to college, you're just, you know, exploring yourself. So until I was 18 years old, I was just playing and exploring my game, seeing what I was good at. I was playing because I love the game. Then when I got to college, they start teaching you the importance of the of getting better in your fundamentals and understanding the defenses and understanding spacing and rotations and those extra details that are what take you to the next level if and when you become a professional. But up until college, I would say all those years from 12, 13, 14, 15, players are still developing. They haven't grown, their muscles are not going to be the same way they are when they're 18 versus when they're 12 and 13. Their bodies change so much. I remember in my situation, there was one summer I grew 4 inches in one summer. And it was that's, for me, that was the summer that I became a player, because I was always skinny and I was always short. And then one summer I grew a bunch of inches, and I believe that was the time that I became a player. And it was in those years that I fell in love with the game. And then once you see that you're good at it, then you want to improve on all those other things to help you get to that next level. So I would say those teenage years are very important for players, because they're learning about themselves, they're learning about their bodies, and it's a very sensitive time for a person, for an athlete in their career.
Those are the words that you talk about. It is very, very important thing for our young generation coaches and who work for the youth program. Let's say end of your career, whenever you finish your professional as a professional basketball player, you will be on the court side or the table side? I mean, the GM or the coach?
I'm not sure. I haven't thought too much
because
about.
I prepare 2 type of question. It is up your answer.
I don't know. I like being part of the game. The game, I love the competition.
You want to be on the court.
Yeah, I love the competition from the game. I love the energy of the game. I love the passion that comes with being part of the game. Being in the management it's cool, but it's a little bit too slow. It's a little bit too slow, too relaxed for me.
Okay, I ask this because of this question. Now, if you become the director of the youth program in a club, what type of coaches that you prefer to work with you and in the youth program? Can you describe the type of the coach that you want to work with as a director of the youth program or the head coach
Sure,
of the
yeah.
youth program?
I mean, I think the first thing to look for in any coach is passion. Somebody who's passionate, somebody who's going to be excited about waking up early in the mornings and helping the kids improve their skills before they go to school. Somebody who enjoys working, somebody that maybe they might not be the smartest person, but they have the desire and they have the ambition to improve. And I think that's the most important thing for a young player to see, because young players they're young in age, but they're very smart. They can understand when a coach really loves their job. They can understand when a coach really wants to help them. And I think that's very important for a young player to wake up every day and go to the gym and for him to feel confident that the coach that's working with him really wants to see him improve, and I think passion is the first thing that anyone should try to find in themselves when they do any type of job. Without passion, all your work will fall short, because if you don't love what you're doing, then you can never take the most from it. So the first thing I'd look for is somebody who's passionate about coaching young players. And we know that when you coach young players, it's all sacrifice. You're sacrificing now for their future. And somebody who's willing to sacrifice, give a lot of their knowledge, give a lot of their time, and know that maybe it's going to take a couple of years before they see the results from that, but that's okay because they love that part of it. So I think those are the most important things: passion and sacrifice.
You spoke to common things with Vasily Misic the week before. He talked about the patient, and Datome also talked about those things as well. So normally in the clinics, coaching clinics, most of them coaches talks. Right now we like to players talks and the coaches listen about from their eyes, from their windows. So other than that, what can you give us some keywords for the as a veteran player? What type of things that a senior coach has on the high level leagues?
What kind? I don't understand the question. What kind of word?
No. What type of things? What type of specialties or characters that a senior coach who worked in Euro Cup or Turkish League?
Yeah, I think it's still the same. It's passion. You know, obviously it's passion, and passion is always first. But I think the second most important thing for a senior team is understanding their players. You know, the basketball has changed so much over the years. You know, my first year in Europe versus this past season in Europe, basketball has changed. The style of play has changed. The tempo of the game has played. The players have changed. The players' mentality has changed. So I think a lot of the responsibility that coaches have to deal with now as senior coaches is how to deal with their players' personalities. Each player is a different person, a different personality. Some players react to a coach being aggressive. Other players react to a coach when he tries to explain stuff to them. Some players react to coaches who like to show things through film sessions and with examples. Like, I think, you know, for the modern coach, there's no one way of coaching. You have to kind of open your brain and open your mind and understand that there are many different players with many different personalities. And if you can find a way to reach each player individually so that they can feel comfortable in their jobs, that's how you take the most out of them. And I think we see that in a lot of the new coaches. You know, a lot of coaches in Europe are changing into that mindset because they know that the players have changed and we have to find different ways to reach them.
Okay. Arkadaşlar sorusu olanlar varsa Erkan Amerika'dan sorunu Amerika'ya sor lütfen.
Hi Mejia, how are you?
I'm doing all right, and you?
Good. Thank you for coming here and then sharing your experience.
No problem.
As I know that you have very good talent if you compare the other players, because you have a good ability for managing team and take a responsibility during the game. So you are like emergency button for the old coaches.
Thank you.
So as you mentioned that you try to help to our young players in Turkey, and thank you for that. But did you make something to show your talent to our young players, like take a responsibility? How can take a responsibility? How can take the advantage for managing team on the court, like a coach on the court, you know?
Right.
So what do you think about it? Is that like talent or can be improved somehow, you know?
I mean, I think first of all, it is talent. In the end, some players are more talented than others. And I think the beautiful thing about basketball is that it's a team sport. You know, in every team, you can see different guys who are successful in different parts of the game. You know, you look at a Doge Balbai for FS, you know, he's a wonderful player in his role. And, you know, his expectation is different from Shane Larkin's or Misic. Mm-hmm. But they both have value for their team. And I think that's when, you know, that experience that they have in learning themselves as players, they can understand. You know, I feel like a guy who is honest with himself.
Mm-hmm.
Erkan öyle bir soru sordun ki düşünmek için şey yaptı, yani mola aldı galiba.
Muhtemelen. Ya bir maçını burada Amerika'daki college öğrencilerine gösterdim ben. Yani takımın sıkıştığı anda nasıl kontrolü ele aldığını, topu geri çekip hani bir önce bir guard sonra bir pivot gibi oynadığını gösterdim. Yeah.
And to try to take that responsibility, but my coach has to support my feelings, and I think that's when the relationship comes in, which is what I spoke about before, of having that understanding and that communication with your player. so that when you guys make decisions, you guys can make decisions together and be on the same page. And I think, yes, a lot of it is talent, but I think a lot of it also has to do with a player being honest with themselves. And, you know, unfortunately, you know.
You mean trust each other during the game? I mean.
Yeah, trust each other and be honest with themselves. Like for example, I've played with some young players that they tell me their dreams, and I have to tell them, like, look, I love you. You're a wonderful kid, but this cannot be your dream. It cannot be. Like, take a small step, try to reach this level, and then we can work on the next steps. And I think, you know, for a lot of the young players, it's easy to dream, but we have to dream and set goals. And until you reach certain goals, it's important that you're honest with yourself and that you have that relationship and understanding with the coach. You know, it's different. It's different. Being competitive and taking that responsibility, it's great to have that mentality, but you have to have something there to support it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ömer, sorar mısın lütfen?
Hi, Sammy. Thanks for joining us.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Sammy, I have a question. This abi situation, you know, this abi words in Turkey is like something different than the other countries, especially the States.
Yes.
Is helpful for the young guys or against them? Because I believe that not all the abis in all over the Turkey not fair enough like you or Barış Ermiş, let's say, in Tofaş.
Yes,
so
yes.
what do you think about this? Because I have bad feelings about that. I want to hear your idea about it.
No, Omer Abi, I call you Abi out of respect. I've known you so many years. Yes, but I agree 100% with you. And that's one of, in this 5 years that I have been in Tofaş, that's one of the things that I try to teach the young players in Tofaş the most. I say, look, you can call me, because they call me Abi. They call me Abi. I say, look, you can call me Abi when we're not in the court, when we're outside, when we're hanging out, when we're at the shopping mall, you can call me Abi. But when we're on the court, I'm your competition, you know, like, you have to try to take my job, you know, and this is sports. Like, you don't owe me anything. You cannot be afraid of me. When we're in the game, when we're in practice, your job is to try to be better than me every day. And I think a lot of that, especially in Turkey, psychologically for the young players, it makes them a little bit hesitant. It makes them soft. Okay, I have too much respect for him. I cannot do this. And I always tell my young players, you know, sometimes it happens in practice. They'll foul me hard and they'll say sorry. And I'm like, why are you saying sorry? You don't have to say sorry. Because of this, we have referees. The referee will call the foul and that's it. But continue. You have to play tough. I think that is part of the challenge for a lot of young players. And, you know, the Turkish culture, that abi culture is very strong. And unfortunately, a lot of the older players, they use that against the younger players to kind of, you know, keep that control and keep that
basically
power.
That's why I ask you this. I mean, I hate it also as an assistant coach, like being in a team and some stuff like this goes on the floor.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Yes, I think the biggest effect it has on the kids, it slows down their confidence, you know. And I think that's one of the biggest differences in sports culture in Turkey and, let's say, not just United States, but Spain, Italy. If we have a young player who's very talented, it doesn't matter how old he is. If he can play, we're going to treat him like he's a good player. You know what I'm saying? And he needs that confidence. We don't want to wait. We shouldn't want to wait until a player is 27, 28 years old to give him respect. No, if he's a good 20-year-old player, 19-year-old player, and he can compete at the highest level in your country, why not push him to be the best he can be? Because that's going to bring all of the level of basketball up in Turkey. And I think that's a big challenge for the basketball culture in Turkey, is that, you know, a lot of the young guys, they have a lot of respect for the older players, which I think is good, but it slows down their confidence and it takes a little bit away from their courage as players, you know, to challenge, you know. And this doesn't only go along players. It also goes for some clubs. The management has that abi mentality. You know, you're a young kid, you cannot do this, you cannot do this. And it's strange because, you know, we teach our players, try to be the best you can be. Try to, you know, if you can be better than someone, be better than them. But then at the same time, we want them to be respectful, to be, to kind of take a step back away. So I'm not a big fan of the obby culture. I think it slows down some of the progress and some of the confidence that I think is very important, especially in those years. Because, you know, when you're 18, 19, 17, like those are the years where your mind is supposed to believe you can do everything. Like, I'm going to be the best player. Like, but if you always have that, okay, I can't do too much, I can't be too good, I have to be quiet. I think those are characteristics that can slow you down in the future. So yes, I agree with you 100%. That's a culture that needs to change. We need to encourage and push the young players to be the best of themselves, even if that means some of the old guys have to take a step back and give up some of our position. And I always tell the young guys, you know, like the day that you guys can be better than me, like I'm gonna move easily, like no problem. I will be so happy if one young guy that I practice with for 1-2 years, he becomes in my same level and he makes me see his improvement. This would bring me so much joy. Like, what else can I do in my career? Like, what can change? Like, but if I can see one young player develop and become a better player and know that I helped him just a little bit, this will make me more proud.
Thanks, Sammy. But another thing, you help a lot of young guys. I already coached them, some of them in national team. He now is with us. They all love you, and you help them a lot. Thanks for it.
Thank you. They are great guys and great players.
Thank you.
Erdem, sen açar mısın mikrofonunu?
Abi merhaba. Hi, Sammy. Thanks, first of all, being over here and sharing all your experiences.
No problem.
I'll have one question.
Okay.
Okay, every one of us over here probably watched The Last Dance, right? Mm-hmm. Over there, on first episode, James Worthy is talking about Michael Jordan, and he's saying that I was better than him, but only just for 2 weeks, because right after the end of 3.5 hour practice, he was pulling me from my jersey and pushing me to play one-on-one. Right. So I was better than him, but just only for 2 weeks. Yes. So my question is that all those years you spent in Banvit and Tofaş, how many players, young players, pull you from your jersey and put you every single day consistently to play one-on-one to improve? Because I observed that, I really believe in that after a certain level for the teams, once the player achieved to be over there, then after individual development also depends on him, how much he dedicates. Absolutely. And it's very important going out of the structure and playing these one-on-one stuff with the best players. Right. And I always give the same example, giving just an example from my experience in our team. All those years, best couple was Bogdanovic and Melih Mahmutov. Every single practice, they were pushing each other. So how much important this do you think? And really, I want to learn if I will be proud if any of our players consistently pulling you from your jersey to play one-on-one.
That's a great question. And I think if I can honestly answer that question, I would say that consistently there hasn't been a young Turkish player to kind of pull on me after practices and try to, you know, have those conversations or have those kind of trainings. I've had them, you know, a few times, but it's never been consistent. And I always challenge our young guys. And you know, it's you know, European basketball is so different because there's so many things that not only in Turkey, but if you want to become a good basketball player, obviously you look in Turkey and you also look in Europe, you know, and I always tell the young Turkish players, okay, it's good to be a good Turkish player, but try to be one of the best European players. Like, don't just focus on Turkey. Like, okay, be as good as you can in Turkey, but be good in Europe. Like, let this be your target. You know, look at other games and look at other countries when they play. I know some young players who don't watch EuroLeague, Euro Cup games. They just watch the Turkish league because those are players that they know. And I'm like, okay, learn from other players, learn from different guys with different abilities and see how they handle situations. 5 players that are kind of similar to how you are as a player, but that they've had very successful careers, and watch them, learn from them. So I think that also is part of the challenge. You know, we don't have that hunger that a lot of other countries have in their younger generation, where guys are just, you know, pulling the older guys and trying to learn as much as they can and compete against them as much as they can. And again, I think that goes back to some of the stuff that I said about, spoke about before, about being in love with it. When you love it, you know, it's, I always tell the young guys, okay, like I'm 37 years old. You can't come to practice at the same time I come to practice and leave practice at the same time I leave practice. It's impossible. Like, there has to be something different between you and I. And unfortunately, that's not the case. You know, a lot of the young guys, they'll come in, you know, at the same time the veterans come in, and they'll leave at the same time the veterans leave. And I think as long as they keep those habits, they're never going to separate themselves from what they are now and what they could be potentially in the future. And I think, you know, there's so many things that go into that, but to answer your question, no, I haven't had that in my time in Turkey, where a young player just consistently, you know, wanted to challenge me and pick my brain and learn as much as he can about me. And I've on the team that I've been in Turkey, I've always challenged the young guys. And sometimes we've even gotten into arguments and fights, because I tell them, you guys watch all these other teams playing and you guys are always complaining, oh, this guy's on this team, he's making this much money and he's doing. I said, okay, but what are you doing to put yourself in that situation? And you know, they get upset, and it's something that they have to live with. And you know, there's, like I said, there's so many things that you can talk about that might lead to that. But unfortunately, that's one of the biggest challenges for the young Turkish generation, is the passion and the love to just enjoy the hard work that comes with being great. You know, it's difficult for some reason. I don't know.
No, I totally agree. That was the point that I wanted to make, and thank you making that point, because I was sure that this is what we are missing in our basketball about the young generation. And as a coaches, I think this is one of the duty that somehow we need to get in their mind and push them to be in that mindset, and push you guys just to be a better, because you guys give much more things than the coaches gives, especially the fundamental side. I'm witness of that. And thank you very much.
No, thank you. That's a great question. I appreciate it.
Başka sorusu olan var mı? Okay, Sammy, let's continue, please.
Okay.
Murat abi çıktı galiba, değil mi?
Evet.
Okay, Sammy, I have a question for you. First of all, thank you. Nice to see you here.
Thank you.
I want to ask you a question about your individuals, and I like to use video. Please check from your screen.
Okay.
First of all, I want to point it to one of your success about the 2-point shots, and I put here one stats about your 2-point performance. Totally, in the last 8 seasons, when you're spending at Turkey, you make a huge percent from twos, and these are that I observe not very close to the rim, but this is totally like a big man percent. For example, Devin Williams at your team is, I think, around 60 or 61% from twos, and many pull-ups from mid-range. All ranges are different, so I like to ask. I separate some of them. First of all, some of them that I have is the question is about the ideas about the finishings, about the how you improve the skills, everything else. What do you think about these things? I separate 2 of them. The first one is especially I observe that while you are going to the left, you are mostly like to finish with the by contact mostly, and some of them like these runners with the inside hands, and most of them with the end one is finishing with end ones. And similar one at this side, you will see sometimes at the pick and rolls like this, with the inside hand jumper again, like similar, like maybe we can say pull up, but with the jump. What do you think about these finishings? And I will add, after your answer, I will add the pull-ups also, pull-ups views after that. First, please, let's start with these ones. And I like to give some ideas to also the youth team coaches by these fundamentals. What do you wanna say about these things?
First of all, thank you for your effort and your work in making this. It's good information. I didn't know those percentages. But like I said before, you know, the basketball has changed so much. It's gotten a lot faster, and I think decision making has become very important in today's basketball. You know, a lot of what we do as players these years in basketball, like we play off instinct more than before. You know, when I first came to Europe, a lot of thing was, you know, we wanted every basket to come off of set plays, and we knew exactly what we were looking for in every offense. Now in today's basketball, you have a lot of different options. You have multiple options in each set play. You have different ways of attacking and different ways of reacting to decisions that players take on the court. And I think with the speed of the game and the athleticism of the game, how much it changed, I think that middle part of the court has become such a dangerous place because it gives you the ability to be close enough to make a play at the rim, but at the same time attract the defense to, you know, make a play for someone else. And I think you know, there's a lot of athletic big guys in there, and then with the European rules, with the big guys standing in the paint, it's very difficult to go inside and get layups. And you know, it's easy to shoot a lot of 3-pointers in Europe, but I feel like getting into that paint and getting into the middle part of the floor, which in my opinion is the most dangerous part of the floor, it can be the most effective. So I think, you know, for every opposing team, when you have a player that's constantly in the middle of the paint, it's very stressful because the player has both sides of the court he can look to. He has the basket, he has the big guy who's rolling, and you know, ultimately it comes down to decision making, but it's a great place to be in the court. So I think the mid-range game is part of the old school style of Europe that I think still does well in today's basketball, because now everybody's pretty much shooting 3-pointers and trying to dunk the ball. But I think the mid-range game still has power in today's game because it just gives the offense, and it gives everything a nice balance. You know, you don't want to just run and gun all day, and you don't want to just shoot a bunch of 3-pointers. So I think the mid-range game is always going to be effective if you have players that are smart and can make decisions in those kind of situations.
What do you think about this, for example, these left attacks and finish with the right hand? Is mostly, you know, at the youth team level, mostly we are trying to teach the guys while you are attacking to the left, finish with left or something, you know, or maybe one-step jumpers with the floaters, but never choosing the way like this every time. When you even go to the left, finish with the right hand is maybe better. But you have many measurements, many calculations, because every time different range. So it helps you, I think.
Yes, that's a great question. And I think a lot of that has to do with myself as a player. You know, there's stuff that my size allows me to do, and my length in my arms. And you know, that's something that I've been successful at throughout most of my career. And I try to use my size, and I try to use my length as an advantage offensively. And, you know, when I'm in that middle of the floor and when I'm going left, the right shoulder is a good source of protection, you know, like it's good. And sometimes it can draw fouls. And now with the way referees are calling the games, okay, it's kind of like me giving away a little secret of mine, but the way the referees call the game now, I actually prefer to shoot right-handed in those situations. Cause a lot of the times when the guy goes to contest a shot, if it has to be a clean block for the referee not to get a call. And, you know, now we flop and we add reactions to a lot of the things that we do. So I think part of my game has come with watching how basketball has changed. And you know, I learned from guys like Nando De Colo. I learned from guys like Navarro when he was a player, and how they were excellent at drawing fouls. And they would take certain situations, especially in crowded situations, like in the middle of that court. If you make a play and it seems like there's a lot going on in that play, and you make a reaction, it's easier to show those fouls when there's a crowd, when it's busy. And I think my size allowed me to be more comfortable in those situations. So that's why it was effective for me. But for someone smaller, it might not be effective because their height might be at a disadvantage. So I just try to use my size and my experience to be productive in those situations, and they've been working for me.
Okay, let's pass to for the pull-ups also to take your ideas about this. You have again many mid-range pull-ups. Some of them at isolations like this. You create your shooting position. Most of them that I see at this, while even you are playing for the close-out situation, many times you are. It seems that you have a great believing about this situation, I think, and also at the pick and rolls, at many mid-range also for the three-point shots you have. And I put some switching situations while you are attacking to the big guy. Also, you prefer to get him unbalanced defense and after that shoot over him. What do you think about these situations?
I think I've always been a big believer in the mid-range game. You know, you look at some of the best players in European history, and they were most of them in the guard position, of course. All those guards, they had great mid-range games. Because like I said before, that middle of the floor, you can pass, you can kick it to the roll guy. When he's rolling, you can shoot the pull-up. And, you know, I think once you find the confidence and once you get comfortable in that situation, it's a great tool to use offensively. Because, you know, like I said, the defensive rules in Europe, that big guy is always going to be under the basket. So, you know, he has two decisions to make. Either he's going to show on the pick and roll, which then I would try to find the short roll or get the ball rotating so that we can play out of the rotation. Or he has to try to kind of show himself. And in that period where he's trying to get back to his big guy and my guard is trying to get back to me, that split second, it's very crucial in today's game. And I always try to wait for those opportunities to be effective. And, you know, now at this age in my career, you know, I slowed down a little bit. I'm not as explosive as I was. Like those are gaps and opportunities that I use to remain effective. And fortunately for me, the mid-range has been working. And I think it's a great tool because the game is so fast. It's hard for big guys to show on the pick and roll every time and then roll back to the basket. So there's always going to be that time in between where they have to make a decision. And if we can teach the young players, the young Turkish players to find the correct decisions in those moments, that can be huge for each individual player, because now you're putting the pressure on the defense to decide, okay, we're either going to show against him or we're going to give him the space to shoot. But when you can kind of do both things, then it makes it difficult for the defense, and that's always a great advantage to have going into the offensive side.
Do you think, are you rely on contact or contested shots? Do you think that you are shooting better or you are finishing better by contact or contested shots?
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I think, you know, obviously less contact is better. Contact makes you tired. Contact wears you out. And, you know, the games are long. The games are physical. So
yeah,
I think the more you can play with your brain and the more guys can understand and play basketball with the brains, it helps so much in your career, helps so much in each game, and it helps throughout the season. You know, there's some players, they start the season great, but then towards halfway of the season or towards the end of the season, you can see that their body's tired.
Yeah.
You know, it's getting to them. So I just think being smart and trying to take advantage of opportunities at, you know, with as little contact and as little stress as possible, I think it's important, not just for that immediate game, but for the entire season. Because, you know, obviously in sports, they judge you by what happens in the end of the season. So trying to make it as far as you can and trying to be as successful as you can is a long-term goal.
Okay, thank you very much. Very nice answers. Also, I think Murat cannot log in again to the meeting. So if anybody wants to ask something else, I will let you to ask. But if no, we want to thank you for this conversation and sharing all your experience with us.
Anytime. Thank you for having me.
It's great time for us, for all of us. Great pleasures. Thank you very much. Nice to see you here again. Okay.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you very much.
He's back.